All right, let's talk about something huge. In early 2026, the world's economic map was completely redrawn. India and the European Union finally sealed a trade agreement that's being called the mother of all deals. And trust me, this is so much more than just tweaking some taxes. It's a massive strategic shift, basically creating an economic corridor that connects almost 2 billion people. So what's really going on inside this historic pact? Let's break it down.
To really get why this deal is such a game changer, you've got to look at the map. For decades, India's trade was heavily tilted towards the US and China. But that green arrow you see there, that's the new reality. It's a powerful economic superhighway being paved directly to Europe, creating a whole new strategic balance and fundamentally changing how money and goods move around the planet. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First up, we'll dig into the geopolitical reasons that forced this new economic map into existence. Then, we'll get into the really good stuff, India's big wins and what Europe gets with its new all-access pass. We're also going to talk about something called the agricultural shield, which is all about what they strategically left out of the deal. And finally, we'll look at the road ahead.
Okay, let's kick things off with a big question. Why now? This agreement didn't just pop up out of nowhere. No, it was forged in the fire of some major global economic pressures that made both India and Europe realize they needed to act and act fast.
And this chart right here, it tells you everything you need to know. Back in 2025, a wave of protectionism in the US absolutely hammered Indian exporters. You're looking at a staggering 21% drop in exports in just 6 months. A hit like that makes finding new markets not just a nice idea, but a matter of economic survival.
And here's the other huge piece of the puzzle, the China Plus One strategy. You've probably heard of it. For both Europe and India, this deal is a massive step in a global movement to de-risk, to spread their bets and not be so incredibly reliant on China for everything. It's all about building more stable, secure economic partnerships for the future.
So, you see the geopolitical chessboard, but how does that translate into actual, tangible wins? Well, for India, this agreement unlocks billions of dollars in fresh opportunities and gives a massive shot in the arm to some of its most important industries.
The most important number is right here on your screen, $2 billion. That's the immediate opportunity, the instant cash injection for India's textile exporters the second those EU tariffs vanish. It's a huge boost of competitiveness for a really vital sector.
And here's the simple breakdown of how that works. The deal completely scraps the 12 to 16% import taxes that Indian clothes and fabrics used to face in Europe. Instantly, that levels the playing field against major competitors like Vietnam and Bangladesh, who already had that sweet duty-free access. And this isn't just about company profits. We're talking about securing millions of jobs in a really labor-intensive industry.
But the wins don't stop there. Another one of India's export engines, the gems and jewelry sector, gets a huge leg up. Through a parallel deal with what's called the FTA bloc, that's a separate group of wealthy European nations like Switzerland and Norway, Indian jewelry now gets duty-free access. This creates a secure pipeline from hubs like Surat directly to some of the richest consumers in the world.
And it goes even deeper into the high-skills sectors. India's world-renowned pharmaceutical industry gets easier access for its generic medicines. But honestly, this third part might be the real game changer here. Better mobility and recognition for India's skilled professionals. We're talking about its nurses, its engineers, its IT whizzes, making it way easier for them to live and work across the entire European continent.
Okay, so that's a whole lot of wins for India. But a deal takes two, right? So what's in it for Europe? Why were they pushing so hard for this? Well, for them, this agreement is basically an all-access pass to one of the most exciting and dynamic markets on the entire planet.
The answer really starts with this number, 1.4 billion. That's the number of people in this gigantic, young, and incredibly fast-growing consumer market that European businesses now get preferential access to. An opportunity on that scale, it just doesn't exist anywhere else. This quote from the negotiations just nails it perfectly. For European companies, it's a double victory. They get a huge new market to sell their high-end goods, and they lock in India as a stable, long-term place to invest their capital, especially at a time when other parts of the world are looking pretty uncertain. And the strategic prize is all about the long game. This isn't just about selling more cars or wine tomorrow. It's about getting a first-mover advantage, getting in on the ground floor to become key partners in India's future. We're talking about its massive infrastructure projects, its digital revolution, and its huge shift to clean energy.
Now this is where things get really fascinating. To understand how this deal finally got done after decades of deadlock, you have to look at what's not in it. Sometimes the most important part of a negotiation is what you strategically decide to keep off the table.
And this chart shows you exactly why. A mind-boggling 44% of India's entire workforce is employed in agriculture. Just let that sink in. This makes it an incredibly sensitive political issue, and it's always been the biggest roadblock in past trade talks.
So, to finally get the deal across the finish line, the negotiators got clever. They created an exclusion list. Super sensitive sectors like dairy, soya, coal, and other basic farm goods were completely walled off from the agreement. This was done specifically to protect the livelihoods of millions of Indian farmers. And this wasn't a failure, not at all. It was a brilliant negotiating tactic. This strategic carve-out allowed both sides to sidestep their biggest arguments. It let them focus on the massive areas where their economies actually help each other. And that's what made the rest of this historic deal finally possible.
So, the deal's done. The headlines have been written. But what actually happens now? Let's take a quick look at the road ahead to get this thing fully up and running.
Well, it's not like flipping a switch. It's a multi-stage process. The big announcement happened in January 2026, and yeah, some parts might kick in pretty soon. But full ratification, that's a marathon. It needs to be approved by the parliaments of all 27 EU member states, and that whole process could easily take the next 12 to 18 months.
And running right alongside this, remember that IFTA deal we mentioned? It came with something pretty radical. This table shows a legally binding promise those IFTA nations will invest $100 billion and create 1 million jobs in India. This is a first in trade history, directly tying market access to guaranteed investment and job creation. It's a whole new model.
So, here's the bottom line. By creating this incredibly deep economic alliance, India and Europe have made a massive strategic bet on each other and on a whole new way of doing global trade. And the question this leaves us all with is pretty simple. In this new, realigned world, who will their partnership challenge the most?